So I'm here with the beautiful Meah from Fem21, founder and naturopath. Meah has been a naturopath in the industry for 18, almost 19 years. So this is a woman with an absolute wealth of knowledge. And she is the owner and founder of Fem21, which has been available now for 9 years. Is that right, Meah?
Yeah, coming up 10. Crazy.
Wow. So welcome. I'm so excited to have you on the Fresh Face Skin podcast because Fem21 we've stocked now in salon for probably about a year. And I can't believe I hadn't heard of Fem21 prior to when I did, because it's transformed so many of our in-salon clients' lives just by working from that inside out. And I love connecting with like-minded women in business that are all about holistic health and supporting women as much as they can through education and intentional products, creating products with intention that are true to their claims and that are backed by so much passion and expertise. So it's so nice to share this space with you, Meah, because I feel like we're quite aligned in that way. And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Amelia. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me and for supporting Fem21. And I absolutely love seeing it in skin clinics because personally, I struggled a lot with my skin as a teenager and really right through until I sorted out my internal and my
Mm-hmm.
hormones as well as my external, what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing with my skincare regime. And, you know, it really does go hand in hand. What you're doing, you know, internally reflects externally. But,
Absolutely.
sometimes if you don't get that combo right of looking after yourself inside and out, it can be a real minefield trying to navigate what to do and what works for you at that particular time. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I know the struggles that women have with their skin, and, it certainly changes over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, for me, with PCOS and hormonal
Mm-hmm.
acne, and then experiencing breakouts and cystic blind pimples, each month, like I'd get one on my chin, and then that would just heal up, and then another one would pop up, like 10 days
Yeah.
later before your period or whenever it
Like you
was,
could
and
never quite get to that clarity
get
long
clear
term
of
of
it.
skin. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
get
love
clear
that
of it.
you're sharing your experience because I know that so many of our listeners will probably at 100% be listening to what you say and have that personal experience with that, because we actually get that a lot in clinic. It's so
Yeah,
frustrating. I'm getting breakouts and then I have like 3 days of clear skin and then I'm there again. And like you
yeah,
said, it's the battle of internal hormones. As a woman, we've got so many fluctuations. So yeah, I just love that you've created a product that supports us not only hormonally, but our liver, our
mm,
gut, our detoxification, everything that our skin needs from the inside out. And it's created by a woman that's not only Australian, that's not only a woman, but also a woman that has so much passion around what she does in your expert field. So thank you for what you
yeah.
do, Meah.
You're welcome. And I'm just happy to see like the changes that it's making in people's lives. Like nothing, lights me up more so than getting like before and after photos, and just,
Mm.
that experience of women and I'm sure you get it as well in the clinic, that feedback of, I just feel so much more confident and it's changed my life, and I don't have to wear makeup anymore or hide myself. And I just feel, so much better about loving myself more because of my clear skin, or, more energy or whatever it might be. So I definitely know what a difference that it can make. And even like as a naturopath, I felt like, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me because I've got all of these breakouts on my skin. They won't take my advice because they think that I'm not healthy because my skin doesn't look good. you know, all
But
of
what a
that stuff
power,
was
because
just
now that's
go through
impacted
that.
you in creating
Yeah,
Femtoon because you've had a personal experience with it.
absolutely.
And I was
Yeah.
exactly the same when I started Fresh Face. I love that you've gone through your own personal journey, because it does truly make all the difference when you're creating a product, because you're bringing your own personal touch to it, and you've actually been there, so you can
Mm.
directly relate personally with how your customers and clients are feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Meah, I wanted to start by asking you, tell us a little bit about your experience as a naturopath. So, I've said you've been a naturopath for almost 19 years. So, talk to us about how you got into this industry, what gives you passion, what, gives you life around what you do day to day within this industry.
So I really feel like I'm on my purpose, which is great. Um, I was born into a very alternative, holistic minded family. And I have an older sister, and my mum and dad were really like hippies from the 70s that were living in this natural, cure lifestyle. I guess my
Love it.
father is a chiropractor and my mum was a nutritionist. My dad studied chiropractic in the United States, where, that sort, movement of they call it like nature care or nature cure, where it's really like just getting back to stripping back the basics around diet and avoiding chemicals and not using medication and being really clean and simple with your living. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of like fasting and compresses and juicing
Amazing.
and yeah, that side of things. So I was brought up a vegetarian. I never saw a doctor like in the 19 years that I lived at
Oh,
home.
beautiful. Mm.
So yeah, like if we were sick, we would go like on a 3-day fast or do some juicing.
Mm.
If I sprained an ankle, it would be compresses and
Mm.
yeah, just really, really sort of basic, simple, holistic living. And of course,
Yeah.
my mum and dad were really like strict around food
Yeah.
and the chemicals in our environment, really
Mm.
clean living and all of that side of things,
Mm.
which was wonderful. And I started working in a health food store at a fairly early age, at 14, pretty well. As soon as I could start working, I did. And I just loved, like, I felt like I had this great community of women that I was working with. They were like all my
Mm.
extra aunties
Mm.
mentoring
All
me.
like-minded. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And so there was a beautiful naturopath there who really inspired me to like understand that my upbringing and my love for helping people could be channeled into working as a naturopath and
Mm.
into that career. So I was pretty set from about
Wow.
15 about what I wanted to do, and then I moved from Cairns to the Gold Coast when I was 19 to study naturopathy, and yeah, I did that. That was a 4-year degree. I met my husband on the Gold Coast and I was pregnant when I graduated with my first daughter,
Yeah.
Ava, who's now 18.
Yeah.
And yeah, came out, had a little bit of time off, but was really keen to get into clinic. And so when she was 12 months old, started working in a natural fertility clinic on the Gold Coast. I really had an interest in women's health and hormones, and I had PCOS, which
Mm.
I only really discovered when I moved out of home and learned about the body and hormones through my naturopathic degree. And I aligned, okay, all of these symptoms that I've been having in terms of my irregular cycles and my male pattern hair growth and my
Mm.
terrible cystic acne
Mm.
was related to this hormonal condition of polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so, I was taking a little bit more like on board in terms of, I was curious. I was like, okay, I want to get a diagnosis. I went to the GP. he, they did an ultrasound, and then they just recommended that I go on the pill. And at that time, I wanted to give it a go because I had just fallen pregnant. And I was only 19 and I was at the beginning of my degree, and I was like, oh, I just am not ready for babies at this time. And so I went on the pill, but I had a terrible reaction to it, I would say. And if I had have been honoring my natural upbringing and my makeup, I probably would have realized that it wasn't for me. But I persevered for about 6 months. But the side effects of the pill for me, sure, it cleared up my skin at that time, but I was just emotionally a wreck. I was really, sad and anxious and foggy. And, when I'd been sort of very clear and able to work through things and really positive, as a person, my whole sort of personality changed and really slipped into this depressive state for that time when I was on the pill. And I just, got to a point where I was like, what's wrong with me? And I, just luckily something pushed me to stop taking it. And it really was like this cloud and this weight that lifted off me. And
Meah, can I ask, at that point when you were feeling so down, probably thinking I've never felt like this before, were you aware at that point it could have been the contraception pill?
I wasn't. I was kind of trying to think it was everything else going on. But, it was actually one of my lecturers at the time that said to me, it could be the pill. And I was like, oh, but it's all this other stuff. And then, but yeah, when I stopped taking, it was really a contrast, before, during, and after. And so I totally recognized that was what was impacting me. And after I had my children, so later on, I had Mirena IUD, which is again, synthetic hormones. You still ovulate with the IUD, and you still cycle, but without a period. So you're not really aware of what's going on. And with the PCOS side of things, ovulation's very irregular, and your hormones are definitely not, following a smooth cyclic pattern. And so, the combination of the PCOS and not having a period and the synthetic hormones of the Mirena, and, being post birth, 2 babies, and working in
so much on the body.
So much. And I was really just in the mindset of looking after everybody else, I think, at that time too. And you just, it's energy out, and I wasn't really
putting
doing
anything
the work
back in
to look after myself. So that was a big lesson for me to recognize that I really needed to take some time to look after myself, and the advice that I was giving out
you weren't
to
probably
women,
taking for yourself.
I wasn't looking after myself as well as I could have been. So it was a bit of a wake-up call. One day I just kind of snapped, and it was a similar sort of feeling of the decision to go off the pill as well. It's kind of like these life moments that just hit you like a ton of bricks because you haven't been listening. So they're
light bulb all of a sudden goes off, and then your whole direction in way of what you're doing for yourself usually then will steer off as well. It's like a wake up.
So it was a big wake up call, and I had the Mirena out, and I was like, I've had enough. I've just got to sort myself out. And and then Fem21 came along, and started working on that, and that was just it was really just a side hustle to what I had already been, because I was in clinical practice, and I thought, oh yeah, this would be fun. I'll make a blend that will be, good for me and something that I can take on the daily, but also incorporates what I've been recommending in clinical practice for, these, women that are having fertility issues, women with PCOS, women with endometriosis, painful periods, women going through menopause. I was like, okay, well, if we target the hormones and support the body from the inside out in a holistic way, both looking after the gut and the liver and the adrenals and reducing inflammation, I think it's got the potential to help a lot of people. And it did, and it has, which is great. And so it was, really sort of born out of my own struggles hormonally, and I guess my own inability to deal with synthetic hormones, and really wanting something natural that balanced my hormones and didn't just mask what was going on.
And that's what a lot of, obviously, contraception and Western medicine does, which is what we talk about a lot in clinic. We don't want to mask the issue. We want to actually get to the trigger, because when you find the trigger and you correct the trigger, we're actually going to see long-term health improvements. And that usually comes from working with imbalances, or working, from what I know, holistically with the body. Thank you for sharing that, Meah. So much I took from that just then. Like, again, you've had such a personal experience with not only acne, but now also hormonal imbalances firsthand. So we know that you've created something from absolutely personal experience, from passion, from, I guess, trial and error on your own journey, which is so lovely to hear, because you can relate to the many women that do come in and have, PCOS, or haven't had a period regularly for years, or have gone off contraception and then have that irregularity within their hormonal cycle. So these are all such common things, we see in clinic, and we see with women in general these days. And you've also experienced firsthand trusting doctors, and not to say doctors don't know what they're talking about. They are very much needed in the world. But when you're in your last straw and you don't know what to do, you do go to the doctors and you do turn to Western medicine. And then long term, we start to see often some more issues coming through. So you've also experienced that. So lovely to hear of your journey. And can I just say, to have role models from such a young age as well, just hearing about your upbringing, how beautiful was your childhood to be given such wisdom from such a young age. And it really has molded not only who you are and your profession, but also Fem21. So beautiful. So just going back a little bit before we really dive into Fem21 more, I would love to know, you're obviously a naturopath, you are in clinic, you're working with clients. Can you let me know, are you working with women predominantly in clinic?
Predominantly, yeah. So my clinical practice has definitely changed over the years, coming up nearly 19 years in clinical practice.
And it's your clinic, Meah?
Yeah,
beautiful.
And so I started out working in fertility predominantly, and so supporting couples throughout their preconception phase, improving their fertility, also taking an integrative approach if they were doing IVF or whatever assisted cycles that they or assisted Western support that they needed to help with their fertility. And so I really found in that environment how great it was to take that integrative approach where you were getting support from both sides of the fence, from doctors and specialists as well, being open to natural medicine, and then the support that's offering them, and the improved results that their patients are receiving because they're taking that integrative approach. And so after that 5 years working in fertility and working with different doctors and specialists, I wanted to branch out into more general women's health. So I started my own business, and I was working alongside two integrative doctors on the Gold Coast. So just essentially like renting a room and then doing cross referrals, which then led into integrative consultations with the doctors. So essentially, I would start with a patient, we'd do a case history for like 45 minutes to an hour, and then I would do a summary. We'd then go into the doctor's rooms and have a combined consultation where I present, the overview, and we would discuss a treatment plan that, combined both what they would recommend in terms of testing or medication or monitoring alongside with the natural medicine side of things. And
wow, that's amazing.
That was great.
Really working with both types of
Yeah.
systems to support women. That's really amazing that you could do that, and that the doctors you were working with were so open to that as well. I love that.
Yeah, definitely. It was a wonderful time. I did that for about 7 years in practice.
Yeah, you would have learned so much hands-on in that environment.
Yeah, so much. And then I was also working from home as well. And then my sort of home-based practice just started growing and growing. And and then I brought out Fem21, and then it was like the juggle between the clinics and home and Fem and family. And so just started to consolidate a little bit more. And the GP that I was working with went through a period of burnout, so he decided to close his clinical practice down. So I was just working predominantly from home, and I was mentoring some other naturopaths as well.
Wow.
And
such a busy time in your life.
Yeah.
A lot of juggle back then. But that
definitely
often is the case when you bring out a product or you start a business, and you're sort of like a one-woman show that's trying to do everything at the start, but it's so good because that's your learning phase as well.
Definitely. Yeah, amazing. Definitely. And in clinical practice, have seen a whole variety of women's health issues over the years. And I'm not working in that sort of integrative space so much anymore. And over the last 2 years, I have done a little return to myself, I would say, where I've pulled back a lot from clinical practice to focus on, supporting my family and my own health, and just getting the balance back, and also plugging into supporting Fem21 and that side of things more so. I love doing sort of educational type things and sharing my experience, and so I do a little bit of that as well, which is great. So I find as a naturopath, I have a lot of variety in my work, which is beautiful. And
especially having your own product now as well, that adds a whole other variety to your work.
So that's been like a whole massive learning curve in itself, coming from just working as a clinical naturopath, and now I'm sort of navigating the whole space of having your own product and getting it out there, and manufacturing and marketing and e-commerce and all of that.
I hear you, girlfriend. I know, I hear you, but keep doing what you're doing, because you've got such purpose and you really are changing people's lives with the product. It's so amazing that you're also obviously in a clinic and you are a practicing naturopath, same as me, practicing dermal therapist, but some people can't get to us, or some people can't afford to see a clinical naturopath or a therapist, depending on where they're at in their life. So creating a product that's affordable, that allows them to treat their concern from home, from the comfort of the home, I think is a really amazing thing. So when it comes to clients that you treat in clinic, can I ask you, what do you normally find is the main trigger? I know obviously everyone's different, but in your experience, do you find there's general triggers when it comes to external skin conditions that present, or whether it's cystic acne, whether it's inflamed skin, underlying congestion? Is there anything that stands out to you that you focus on to begin with as a naturopath?
I probably would say 2 big things would be gut health and nutrient imbalances. So, you know, the gut skin connection is really strong, and what's going on in terms of your gut health, absorption, and detoxification really impacts your skin. And so, really narrowing in on supporting people's gut health in terms of ensuring that they're moving their bowels every day, that they're not eating a diet that's inflammatory, or you know, they're not having foods that they're sensitive to that's causing reactivity, you know, having a balanced diet of, you know, healthy proteins and fats and carbohydrates, plenty of fiber, that side of things, good bacteria in the gut, all super important for gut health. Now, definitely getting that right, I think, makes a big difference for skin. Absolutely.
And would you say, Meah, for someone that comes in that says, yeah, I do get bloating, I have a bit of discomfort often in my gut, but I don't know where to start when it comes to food and what could be triggering it, do you ever recommend like a food journal, or do you have key food groups that you'll go straight to sort of cutting down on straight away?
Probably the first thing I would cut down on and recommend is people that remove dairy and sugar from their diet. I generally find that that's really the, you know, two big triggers for people when it comes to congestion and skin issues, and driving inflammation in their body as well. So food wise, I often start there. If they're unsure, then I probably next step would be gluten based products, or wheat, and, you know, having a time off these, you know, reactive foods then allows your gut to function more efficiently, and then you can reintroduce that food and see if you're having a reaction or a sensitivity response to it. And that way you can gauge what your tolerance level is and where your sensitivity is at. So it's a good way. It's just like an elimination completely of it for, say, like a month or up to 6 weeks, and then being super strict over that time, and then reintroducing that food, and then just seeing how the body responds. So that's a good place to start looking at, dairy, gluten, and sugar.
Okay, it's good to know for a lot of people, I'm sure, that are listening that have gut issues that don't know where to begin. And when it comes to other triggers, so you've discussed the skin and gut axis, which is so important. What about hormones for women? Is that another real cause that you find?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And our hormonal health, you know, directly impacts our skin and what's going on in terms of, you know, how the body is dealing with estrogen and testosterone and ovulatory patterns, makes a big difference in terms of our skin health. If our body is metabolizing estrogen and testosterone efficiently, and our liver's clearing that out of the body efficiently, then we're much less likely to experience breakouts cyclically with our ovulation and with our period. So supporting our hormonal metabolism through liver, gut health, makes a big difference. And getting our hormone balance right can be a little tricky, because we need to understand what the symptoms are that are indicating a hormonal imbalance for us. So it could be, you know, our breakout cyclically around ovulation or our period. That may indicate that our body is particularly sensitive to estrogen and testosterone. But we also may be experiencing other hormonal symptoms like, you know, PMS in terms of mood fluctuations, or swollen or sore breasts, or fluid retention and bloating, cramping, you know, spotting, clotting with our periods, heavy periods, you know, hormonal migraines or headaches. List goes on in terms of these hormonal symptoms that can indicate an imbalance.
So are you saying, Meah, if we had balanced hormones, we really shouldn't be getting any symptoms like that as women leading up to
That's
our
right.
period or during?
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's big for a lot of women to hear,
Yeah.
because a lot of us were brought up just, I guess, just maybe from our parents and the education we received, that cramping can be normal, you know, a few days before your period, or a migraine for some people, or the mood swings. You know, that's just normal. You're getting your period. But to hear that that's actually a sign of imbalance, that's big, because I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of women right
Yeah.
now.
And I think just because it's common doesn't make it normal, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like up to 80, I think up to 80, even higher, I would say 80% of women experience symptoms around cyclically around their hormones.
I believe that. Yeah.
And so depending on the severity of those symptoms can indicate how much support that our body actually needs to eliminate those symptoms. So realistically, our period should show up on time. It, you know, is heavier in terms of flow for the first 24 to 48 hours. Our uterus does swell in that initial phase of our period. So we might get some bloating or swelling, but that's normal. It goes down fairly quickly, and then our period after 5 days should just stop.
So 5 days is a healthy period.
Yeah, healthy period. And so and then we should be getting ideally that cervical mucus around ovulation, indicating a healthy rise in estrogen for ovulation, and then the cycle repeats itself. So if we're experiencing a lot of symptoms, depending on the level of severity as well, like if it's really impacting your quality of life, then absolutely do something about it, because you don't have to suffer like that, you know. And
it's every single month, you know, as women, until we're probably 50 or sometimes early 50s, late 40s. It's a long time, you know, to be having to put up with symptoms. Meah, while I've got you talking about the menstrual cycle, you know, I feel like for women like you that are in the naturopathy field, you're a professional, even myself, having done so much study on menstrual cycle for skin, I feel like sometimes we don't even realize how much information we naturally have and how much misinformation or no clarity other people have in their day-to-day lives. I'd love for you to run through, you know, what a normal day cycle looks like, if you can, for our listeners, because I think they'll find this so beneficial, so that they can have some education around their cycle, and also what's normal leading up to the period, what day this sort of looks like. You've said 5-day period, what normally happens after the period, so people can get to know their cycle and even actually start to understand it a little bit more, maybe even track it, so they can start to see whether they do have a balanced cycle or whether they may need some internal support.
So ideally, understanding your cycle comes into 4 weeks or 4 phases. So I even compare it to the seasons. So if day 1 of our period is day 1 of our cycle. So that's when our cycle starts on that first day of bleeding. And the bleeding phase, your period, is like winter. And so energetically, we're going to want to slow down, look after ourselves, be in the cave, not push ourselves, be really gentle, use that time for reflection, conserving energy, like you would want to sort of hibernate in winter. And so that's when our hormones are at their baseline or at their lowest point in our cycle. So a healthy normal period, lasts 5 days. It's usually starts off that bright red, fresh color for the blood, and then tapers off to a lighter pink when it stops. And then the next phase is that pre-ovulatory follicular phase. And we would call that spring. And so that time is when our estrogen levels start to rise in the lead up to ovulation. And so that springtime for women is a time where, you know, you start to have more energy, and it's an expansive time in your energy. So, you know, things start to grow and flourish, and, you know, we're out of hibernation and our energy levels start to pick up. And then the next week is our ovulatory week. And
so would you say, Meah, the spring cycle is around 7 days?
Yeah, if we break it up into sort of weeks or phases. But that being said, the lead up, that follicular phase to ovulation, can be extremely varied for people if they're not having a regular cycle. So for somebody like with PCOS or in that perimenopausal phase where they're having irregular cycles, that follicular phase can sometimes be 2 weeks, which is great, normal. For other women, it can be shorter, can only be, you know, like 10 days or even 7 days, and they're having early ovulation. For other women, it can be a very long time. It can be 3 months, 6 months. So it can really vary. If you're having a longer cycle, your follicular phase is going to be longer. So essentially, we're in a longer cycle, we're in a lower hormonal state for a really, we're in our winter for a lot longer time. And then the spring, summer is when we are moving towards ovulation, and our estrogen levels are rising. We ovulate, and then after ovulation occurs, then we move into our autumn phase, which is where progesterone levels are primarily dominant. They help to balance our estrogen. And this is actually when the body is dealing with the most amount of hormones in our cycle, because we've got the metabolism of estrogen happening after ovulation, and also that progesterone that comes in to help balance our estrogen. And then progesterone and estrogen levels will drop right before our period starts. And so typically, hormonally speaking, women have the most difficulty in that sort of late summer, autumn phase of their cycle, in their luteal
leading into
phase.
winter.
Yeah.
And when it comes to ovulation, would you say that's your summertime?
Yeah, definitely.
It's lovely that you do the seasons. What can a woman expect when they're ovulating in a really healthy way? Just so that they know what to look out for.
Ovulation is, you know, that peak for estrogen in your cycle. And estrogen is like, if you imagine estrogen is like that gorgeous, lovely, outgoing friend who's the life of the party. And so it brings that sort of summer, exciting, high energy into your cycle. And estrogen is so important, and it makes, for women, you know, everything that makes us feminine. So it helps with our skin to glow. It helps our hair to be glossy and shiny. We release, you know, those attractive pheromones at that time due to a peak in estrogen. So naturally we'll feel, you know, a bit more sexy, a bit more outgoing. Our mind will be a lot sharper and clearer. You know, our breasts get fuller, our blood flow to our face. You know, we have that glowy sort of look. That all improves around ovulation and in that summertime. The problem is if that lovely high energy friend doesn't leave. And so
if she just wants to stay there,
she wants to hang around.
She doesn't want to leave the party.
No, she doesn't want to leave. She's like, I'm going to be annoying now.
Now I'm no longer fun.
No,
I'm tiring.
no
I'm annoying you.
I'm wearing everybody out.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, you know, estrogen then, when it's not metabolized and doesn't leave in the appropriate time, it can be quite inflammatory and toxic for your system. And so then we can get these estrogen dominant type symptoms, which include things like, the hormonal headaches, the painful periods, the swollen sore breasts, the cramping, the heavy periods, the body. Yeah. So those sorts of symptoms go with that higher level of unmetabolized estrogen. So
it's really nice to know.
Yeah, estrogen's not a bad girl. We need her, and we love her, and we want her to come in at that appropriate time, but also
she needs to leave. She needs to know when to leave.
Yeah, okay. That's right. Yeah.
So while we're talking about, imbalances and I think, irregularities within hormones, I'd love to know from your experience as a naturopath with almost 19 years experience, what influences, whether it's external or internal, can lead to these internal imbalances for females? What are the most common culprits?
It's a variety of things. I would definitely put stress up there. And how stress impacts the body and our hormonal metabolism. And so when we're in that fight or flight, freeze, stress mode, our body really takes that survival mode essentially as the top priority and puts blood, energy, and nutrients into dealing with that stress response. So it takes away the blood, energy, and nutrients from other systems that aren't important for short-term survival, like our hormones and our reproductive system. And so it leaves that hormonal reproductive system open to imbalances and irregularities and problems essentially. So dealing with your mental and emotional health and your stress response, I think, is so important for your overall health and well-being, but it also has that direct impact on your hormonal health, as well as other systems of the body like gut health and our immune system, our sleep-wake cycles, our adrenals, all influenced by our stress response. And when our adrenals are in that fight or flight mode and we're producing these higher levels of cortisol, it will rob the body of progesterone in the luteal phase. It also impacts ovulation regularity too. So we can have irregular cycles and lower levels of progesterone, which then just sets us up for this, bad hormonal picture that leads to, these difficult cycles, I would say, and the symptoms that go along with that.
And it's hard, Meah, because these days stress is everywhere, and often a lot of women don't even know they may be stressed because they've had such, high adrenals for so long. They're used to running their life that way, busy mind, running around, never sitting, never being quiet, and their body's feeling stressed, but they may just know that as their life, as how that's normal for them. So I think probably a good indication of whether there are imbalances is if your hormone levels or your period in any way, your cycle is in balance. It's showing there is something internally that may be triggering that response in the body. 100%. So I think it's important to listen to that. And when it comes to stress, I mean, I know Fem21 can support stress, but is there any other supplements alone that you recommend for stress and helping with stress levels?
I think it's important to note as well a couple of things like you touched on, Amelia, the periods are really like a report card for your body and so and your overall health. So that if you're having issues with your cycle and with your period, that it's showing you that something else is going on internally to be addressed. It's that red flag waving. And so when it comes to stress, different personalities also deal with stress differently. So depending on, if you're an introverted person or an extroverted person, will and your personality type, your support network, all of that side of things influences how you'll manage stress. And so it comes, internally as well as externally, that need to support our stress levels, you know, with a healthy mindset and taking that time for yourself, understanding how you can manage things in your life to reduce your stress. It might be, you know, just simply starting out with doing some journaling or talking to somebody, or, you know, exercising, going for walks, or doing some meditation or yoga or whatever it might be that is aligned with your personality and your life, and what you can do to incorporate more stress relieving techniques on the daily
that work for you.
That work for you. From a supplement perspective, I definitely focus on supporting the adrenals and the nervous system. And so that makes a huge difference to that mind-body connection in terms of providing your body with the resources it needs to manage stress mentally and emotionally in a healthier way. And so when we're supporting the nervous system and adrenals, I often use nutrients and herbs like magnesium and B vitamins, even, you know, some specific type of amino acids like S-adenosyl methionine or SAMI, 5-HTP. They can all be really helpful for nutritionally providing the body with the resources it needs to make like more serotonin and dopamine and melatonin and oxytocin and those sorts of neurotransmitters that help us to feel happy and clear and positive, to sleep better. All of that makes a difference in terms of stress. From a herbal perspective, I often use herbs like that are in Fem21 that support the adrenals, like licorice and withania and Siberian ginseng, and herbs, above and beyond what's in Fem21 for the adrenals and the nervous system. Even things like St. John's wort or rhodiola, schisandra, gochicola. They can all be beautiful herbs to help the nervous system just, settle in a healthy way, like we don't want to sedate people or anything like that.
But we want to feel balance in our day-to-day, don't we? We want to feel a sense of calm.
Yeah.
Be able to take that breath and just feel like we can really sit in that for a moment without feeling like we're buzzing all the time. So nice for you to share that. And, when it comes to supplements, I think it's really important to know around quality of the supplements you're taking and where you're purchasing them from as well. I mean, there's so many online businesses these days, and there's so much information, misinformation. You can feel a sense of overwhelm listening to podcasts or reading blogs about supplementation and how to support specific needs. Is this where you always turn to going to a practitioner, someone that is specialised, to make sure that you are actually taking supplements that aren't actually going to do the opposite of what you hope they're going to do? Because we don't know what quality supplements are out there. There's so many. How do you know if you don't have the background or the knowledge?
Yeah, and it is it's a minefield, I would say, in that world, and you can get a huge variation in quality. That being said, I think the world is a little different now compared to 10, 20 years ago, in terms of the online space and the resources that we now have there. So absolutely, you can do your own research into understanding a supplement, foundation or regime that's suitable for you. However, there is something magical and specific that comes from seeing a practitioner, to develop to have somebody listen to your full history, look at all of your bloods, and then give you a treatment plan and a recommendation based upon that information, and can support and monitor you at different stages of your health. journey.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not sort of in a position that you're, ready to commit to, a naturopathic, treatment with somebody, even just starting out by going into a health food store and speaking to somebody at the health food store. They give free advice. They can point you in the right direction. They can give you some, general, advice around what you're wanting to work on. And they typically know from the plethora of supplements and brands that are out there what works and what is good quality. And so there's a difference, I would say, between that sort of level of support compared to, the specific support that you can get with sitting down with a naturopath. But it's a really good place to start.
It's a start. Yeah. It's great advice, Meah, because there's just a lot out there these days, and I think it's nice for people to know, just your, I guess, advice on where to start and your tips around starting, because it can feel so overwhelming for so many. So thank you for sharing that. What I would want to touch on now is Fem21 a little. We obviously know, why you created this extraordinary product. You have your own personal experience with hormones and skin. And from what I've taken, correct me if I'm wrong, you created Fem21 to bring balance back to female hormones and everything that goes around that, whether it's mood, whether it's stress levels, whether it's skin. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Fem21 was really born based out of my clinical experience of wanting to support women's hormones in a holistic way. So, as a naturopath, we definitely think a little differently. Like we want to, we're looking at hormonal health, but we're also looking at other aspects that influences hormonal health, like gut health and liver function and adrenal health and thyroid function and inflammation in the body. All of that impacts those symptoms hormonally. So, I was prescribing liquid herbs and
you're doing your concoctions of herbs.
Concoctions of herbs and different nutritional supplements and compounding and there was definitely a space where I was like, if I could combine this support into the one thing that you could take easily on the daily, then we'd be hitting a lot of marks, I guess, in terms of,
and I feel like it simplifies it for so many people that may feel a little overwhelmed with where to start. This is an all-in-one product that's almost a go-to for most women, you would say, to at least give them some relief and to start that journey of balance internally.
And I definitely think it really does that holistically. So if you're having hormonal symptoms, Fem21 is going to absolutely address that. But as a, side to that, we're also getting better gut health going on. Our stress response and our adrenals are healthier. We're improving our inflammation control and our mental health and clarity, and we're sleeping better. And so all of these things, improve along with our hormones becoming more balanced. So
and therefore improve your whole life, you would say, because that's everything really that we need, in day-to-day life.
Good place to start. And it's easy to do. It's like a powder that you can just mix into water, juice, or a smoothie. You can take it any time of the day, and I love it being in a powdered form as opposed to like liquid herbs or capsules, that can be difficult to take, having to swallow like a million capsules or, this really concentrated liquid herbal blend. You
can take the time you want to take it.
It's the powdered versions get absorbed really easily. We can work with higher dosing as well, because we're not trying to skimp and save on space to fit it into a capsule. And so, yeah, you get this potent, easily absorbable, easy to take supplement, that just works in with, your day. I just do mine first thing in the morning, before I do anything else. So it's like,
and you don't need to take it before food, after food, sorry. It can be any time, which is really easy too.
Just whenever suits your routine, and but consistency is key when it comes to Fem21 and hormonal health as well. Taking it daily for at least 3 months is really important to support your hormonal health, because hormonal changes don't happen overnight. They happen cyclically. And so you may start to see a difference in terms of gut health and energy, and improvements in your symptoms within that first month. But really setting and balancing your hormones and getting into a good place often doesn't happen until the body has worked through a couple of cycles, which I say it's about, you want to give it that 3 to 4 months.
And on that, Meah, can you talk us through what someone can expect, say, if they're coming in and they have had, imbalances with their hormones, or they haven't had regular cycles, perhaps they've gone off the pill, they haven't had their cycle come back, perhaps they're coming in with a lot of hormonal breakouts. What are the normal benefits people can see or feel in the first 4 weeks versus, say, the 3-month mark from your experience with Fem21?
Well, often things get worse before they get better.
I wanted you to touch on that.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people think, it's a supplement that does all of this. Great. It's going to, I'm going to start to see noticeable changes in 3 or 4 weeks. But that's exactly what I found with our clients. It often gets worse. The skin actually gets worse over the first 4 weeks. And it's one of those things where we're like, we need you to be consistent and just trust this process. The fact that it is getting worse tells me that it is changing some hormonal, your balances internally and levels. So it's doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with the body recognizing the need to rebalance and potentially detoxify. And so especially with the herbs that support liver health and gut function, and the fiber, that first month can be those detoxy type symptoms where you're getting skin breakouts or headaches, or your bowels are changing. You might feel more fluidy, you might feel more fatigued, and it's usually fairly short-lived, I would say. The detox phase doesn't actually happen for everybody as well. It just depends on the individual and what they need, depending on where they've come from, I guess. If they've come from 10 years of being on the pill and they haven't had a cycle, and potentially if they're overweight, or they've been drinking a lot of alcohol or eating a lot of sugar, or processed
they're going to have a higher detox.
They're going to have a higher detox, and might take them a little bit longer to find their happy place, but just understand that detox phase is part of the body innate wisdom of what it needs to do to get rid of, to function efficiently. And so if that is like your skin getting worse, or having those headaches, or feeling a bit more fatigued, just know that it's that's part of the process. You might need some extra support at that time as well. Like you might need more water, more rest, more gentle exercise. You might need some juices, or or you could need some zinc or B vitamins or magnesium, or whatever it might be that helps support that detox process. And then you come out the other side of that, whether it's 2 weeks later, or a month or 3 months, where things are balanced, your symptoms are gone, and you're feeling good.
And you've removed the trigger, or we've partly, hopefully wholly, but we've removed that main trigger from internal that may have caused what's going on externally or with the irregularities of periods. So just focus on the fact that, like you said, we're moving through like a change in the body. Your body is actually starting to rebalance, and we're actually starting to get to the root cause of what many women have as a concern, like acne, for example. We're actually starting to balance that out so they can see some normalities long term, which I think is really important to hold on to when it's so hard. When you're looking at your skin getting worse, just remember this is for a long term benefit. I think it's really important. So when it comes to Fem21 and say testimonials that you had, do you want to share any while you're here, Meah? Anything that stands out that brings a big smile to your face? Any feedback that you've had from women taking Fem21?
Oh, I'm so blessed. I get stuff nearly every day of people sharing their experience with it, which is so good. I think, let me read you a recent.
I'd love that. Because it does it. It's so personal when you hear people's words and how it's actually touched them in their life, because everyone's so different and we all have our own struggles. And it just makes it so worthwhile, doesn't it, Meah?
I just love it. You just, and it's a different sort of experience, I would say, to when you're treating people in clinic, because like these are people that you've never even
don't know.
met.
I know. And you've made an impact on their life. How amazing. Yeah.
So this one was, hi there, I just wanted to thank you so much for this wonderful product and the tremendous impact it's had on my life. Sorry, I'm gonna get it teary. This is 2 months difference, so like a before and after. I had hormonal acne coming out of nowhere in June. I felt so self-conscious and depressed. I didn't want to leave the house. I was at the lowest of the lows. I started on your product in July, just as I took the bottom picks, and the top is today. You've given me my confidence back, and I'm eternally grateful. I can now be makeup free without shame, and I recommend your product to everything that I know.
Man,
so how nice is that?
Yeah, it just makes you realize women, it's hard being a woman, we go through a lot. We have babies, we have menstrual cycles, we have menopause. It's just never ending. And it can and if it's mood, that's one thing, and if it's pain, that's another. But if it's your skin is your first contact with everyone, no matter what anyone says. And makeup can only do so much. And from what I hear from our clients in our communities, their number one goal is to walk out of the house makeup free and feel just as confident if they were wearing makeup or not, because you're not relying on it anymore. So to hear that's just changed their life so much, you should be so proud of yourself. It's massive.
That's so good.
It's so good. And it's so beautiful to meet a fellow woman that's living their purpose, Meah. It's lovely that you found it, because so many people don't,
I definitely feel blessed to be working in the natural medicine industry and helping people. And, it just, I think, like we said earlier, like even if you can just impact one person, and then it's like a little ripple in the pond, and then that makes a difference.
But even the fact that people talk, they tell their girlfriends or, their family, if someone else they know is struggling and they've felt support in some way from something, they pass it on. So it is a ripple. You are making this impact and this ripple effect for women, and you're making our lives a little easier. So it's wonderful. You should be very proud of yourself.
And, I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, and, life's a journey, and sometimes like it's, it's great when you find something that really helps and supports you at that time in your life, but it might not be forever, and then you move on to
anything,
the next
isn't
thing.
it?
It's like with anything. So yeah, I'm happy to help wherever I can.
Well, you're an absolute joy to chat to. Thank you for sharing your knowledge today. And I did want to just ask you, just to finish off, is there anyone that shouldn't be taking Fem21 or can't? Is there any contraindications with your product? Because don't get me wrong, everyone, herbs are powerful. I think we need to remember that. Holistic medicine is powerful. Just because it comes from a plant or a natural source, it's still quite results driven. So is there anyone that shouldn't be taking Fem21?
So I recommend, if you're taking any synthetic oral, like any oral contraceptive pill, Implanon, Depo-Provera, anything that suppresses ovulation, that you don't use Fem21. It's contraindicated in that case, just because it can metabolize those synthetic hormones faster and more efficiently out of your body, and then that can leave you open to that medication not suppressing ovulation, and then you're potentially getting, may have an unwanted pregnancy. So if you're using any synthetic hormones for suppressing ovulation for contraception, I wouldn't use Fem21 at that same time. Also, we don't recommend it during pregnancy. We really just want to allow those pregnancy hormones to do their thing. But certainly if you're, weight-wise, there's like different dosage recommendations depending on your weight or your age. So you can modify that and find that info in the brochure or on the website around dosing. If you're in active treatment for like a hormonal dependent cancer, like breast cancer, I wouldn't recommend using Fem21 at that time. But I have had quite a few women, 12 months post-treatment, when they're, everything sort of stabilized for them, they can introduce Fem21 at that time. And it can be quite beneficial just to, detox, get the body back on track hormonally, and keep that homeostasis and that balance happening in the body.
Meah, this is fine, just correct me, this is fine for menopausal women, is that correct?
Absolutely. It makes such a big difference for that menopausal transition through perimenopause to postmenopause. So and you can use it beyond menopause
that's really
as
good to
well.
know.
So
it's really great for any main stage in the female life.
So it can be used for teens. I generally recommend for teenagers, depending on their weight, that they are using a half scoop of Fem21, especially if they're less than 50 kilos. And then, it can be used, late teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Yeah, no problem.
Amazing. Meah, we've also had some amazing feedback with fertility. We've had clients that have been told, like with PCOS, that they would never have a baby. We've had clients that have been on IVF in the past and that have actually started Fem, and after like a year and a bit, they've actually fallen pregnant. So we've had our own feedback around that. So obviously with rebalancing of hormones as a female comes more fertility. So I think for those of you that are on Fem21 and aren't looking to get pregnant, and you're not obviously on contraception, just making sure that you are aware of that. Just taking adequate, protection where you can, other alternatives, because your body in its most balanced female way will bring in a baby. You will have a bubba, depending on your age, of course. So just remembering that.
Yeah, definitely. It's one thing to be, hormonally balanced and cycling, but also being aware that, if you were having fertility problems, that moving into that state where your hormones are balanced does improve your fertility. And so, I've heard probably about 6 reports like that of women that have been told that they wouldn't get pregnant naturally, and that they were infertile, and then and just thinking that, oh, that's it for me, I'm not gonna have babies. It's not in my future.
Mm.
And, you know, like,
And then boom.
and then it happens for them.
Yeah. So
Which is
just be mindful
wonderful
of that.
and a blessing.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
wonderful. But also just, be mindful for those that aren't
yeah,
wanting children just yet, or maybe don't want
yeah,
children, just to be aware of that.
yeah,
Well, thank
for
you
sure.
so much, Meah. This has been a joy chatting to you. So
Thank you,
wonderful.
Amelia.
I
Thank you.
hope you, our beautiful Fresh Face Skin community, our listeners have, like I always say, even if you've just gotten one piece of information today, we've impacted you, and I've done what I want to do for this podcast. So thank you for your openness and willingness to listen to advice and be further educated on your skin journey. And thank you, Meah, for contributing to this ripple effect, you know, within our community. It's wonderful.
Thanks,
Knowledge is
Amelia.
power.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much.
Meah.
Thanks for having me. It's been
Thank you
great.
for what you do.
Bless. Thank you.
Bye.